So we have Kimberly Burdick from Montana and Susan Bumstad. Is that correct?
Bumstad.
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 All right. And you're both from Montana, and we're here to discuss your story on how you guys worked the assembly, or what do you guys call your government, your state house?
House and the Senate. Yeah.
The House and the Senate.
The legislature.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we go by assembly here in the state of New Jersey. So, and you're both very active in your Apco chapter. Kimberly, you're the past president.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
Susan,
I
you've
am.
been involved as well.
Yes.
With your Apco. Okay. And just a little bit about myself. I am a member of the Atlantic chapter. We cover 8 states in the Northeast. I'm currently on our ProChart committee and working on my RPL program.
Oh,
And
cool.
Rebecca McLeese, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the group.
I'm part of the Wisconsin chapter, and I too am working on my RPL. I'm a month behind James, and I've been in dispatch for 18 years technically. I had a break in there, but essentially since 2000, if you don't count the break. So,
I think we've all had a break.
Reclassification.
Nice. So Kimberly, if you would start with the process of how you guys got your legislature to pass the resolution and what's involved with that.
Okay. So first of all, there were the national efforts that were in the works and everything. And as we know, they did not go through there. And I think it's 2019 where everything kind of went by the wayside. So in our Apco chapter and stuff, me and Susan and I especially, it's always like, we're not going to end it here. We want to keep going. We want to see if there's another avenue that we can take. So we kind of focused on the state instead of the national efforts, obviously. So we have some organizations. Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association has been a strong supporter of Montana Apco, of dispatchers across Montana. And they were very integral and very key to supporting us when we were approaching the legislature for 20-year retirement. So I thought, well, I'll take a shot. My husband's a sheriff and stuff. And I thought, well, I'm just going to write a letter and see if we can get their support for moving forward on our own to see if we can get reclassified or classified as first responders in Montana. So anyways, I wrote a letter to them, asked for their support, and I stood up and I spoke with them at one of their meetings, and they were more than happy, always happy to support 911. So that was kind of the start of it. And the next part was finding somebody that would sponsor it in the legislature, because that would, of course, been 2021. So we were trying to get a jump on it anyways in 2019. So anyways, decided to approach a very friendly, very supportive representative from the House, Frank Garner, to see if he would help us in the efforts and take the bill, at the time we were thinking bill, forward to the legislature for us. So I reached out to him on a number of occasions and wrote him a letter as well, the typical letter like I also sent to MSPOA. And he was totally on board with it. So it was just really a matter after that of, number one, he's a busy guy and everything, and getting him nailed down to a point in time where, we could really sit and discuss what it was we were looking for. So as 2020 happened, we decided, working back and forth on the bill, he was, of course, or like I said, Bill at the time. And so we kind of struggled. He struggled a little bit, how do we get this? What do we want to say? What are we looking for? And so he was kind of hesitant on the bill side, just because they had found some language in statute in Montana that was kind of, in a way, you could interpret it to mean that 911 are already first responders and recognized as first responders.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's kind of a
Okay.
stretch, but anyways, he really, he kind of touched on that. But so he was struggling an awful lot with what do we want to do? So finally, he came up with the idea of a resolution instead. And I wrote this down, but the reason he said resolution, he said that a resolution can encourage and seek recognition. So that was one of the reasons. And I thought, well, that's great. That's what we want to do is, we already have federal level efforts taking place. So what we want to do is, we're still interested in, the reclassification, the recognition is really what we're looking for. So after what I did was I said, well, what I can do, I said, is I will send you the language of the 911 Saves Act. So once I sent that over to him, he's like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So
Awesome.
once he read through all that, it was kind of a one-way path. Then, he just wanted to keep moving with that. And that's what he did, is he introduced that into the legislature. And then, of course, Susan and I have been down this road before where we, had to testify at hearings and everything. But we did that, and we had another dispatcher that testified as well. And it was overwhelming support from both the House and the Senate to get the resolution passed. And one of the things that he was very adamant about doing, because he was a former chief of police, so he absolutely recognizes the job that 911 does and how valued it is. So he really wanted to, he wanted to make it clear that, we're just not going to stop here. We're going to get this passed, and we're going to continue down this road to get more things done. But one of the things he wanted to do too is he wanted to make sure that the resolution went to all the county commissioners. But he also wanted, and I found his email where they were going to send it to all of Congress and to the president as well. So that was something I asked him about that, and he said yes. And then, of course, I asked him too, because you had come up with that question about, said, well, your two senators and your House representative, aren't signed on as co-sponsors. So I asked him about that. I said, is there any way that you can step up and ask for their support and see if they can sign on to that? So he hasn't gotten back to me. He initially got back to me and said, yes, we're moving and I'm going to be working on that and everything. But I haven't heard anything back from that yet. But anyways, in a nutshell, I didn't go into great detail or anything like that, but that's kind of the direction that we went with that. So, and I'm sure Susan can probably fill in the blank spots.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, when Representative Garner introduced the bill, when he was actually presenting it to the committee that we were talking in front of, one thing that struck me was that he gave testimony along with the presentation of how his dispatchers made a difference in his career. It was really powerful. And I think one of the things that we were fortunate to have was someone who was presenting this who got it. And I've had a bunch of people tell me since then that we are fortunate to have somebody who gets it, that's on our side, that wants to help us and has ideas for other things, for moving forward. And he did come to talk after it was passed. It was passed in the early part of 2021. And then we had a conference in the fall of 2021 that he came to and talked to the dispatchers that had come to that conference. And it was powerful to hear him talk to all of the dispatchers. It really got them excited. One thing I like about that was that they were willing then to take that extra step once we were all talking about it at the tables, and what can we do from here? We've got this much done. Whether or not you were involved in it, now you can be involved in another way. And I really think that's key here, is involving everyone. Remember, we have dispatchers who like to be behind the scenes. Well, we have to step up for ourselves. We just do. because
Yeah.
it's our careers and I'm retired, but it's my replacement that I want to take care of.
I love it. Taking care of the next generation, and so that way
Exactly.
they don't have to experience what we've experienced, that feeling that no one gets it and no one recognizes what we do, because we are behind the scenes. And I just love the idea of what you're talking about as far as finding that one person that is supportive of the idea and gets it, because that's what happened here in New Jersey. Both the state senator and the assemblyman in my district, they are both volunteer firefighters, like lifetime firefighters. So the state senator from North Jersey proposed the bill in the state Senate, and the state assemblyman in the state house put a bill up, the assembly bill up. Again, both were firefighters. So I think our audience, I hope they key up on that and really do their research and try to find a state senator or a state assemblyman, whatever your terminology in your local state is. Identify that friendly person, the assemblywoman or assemblyman who was a former EMT, current police officer, former retired police officer, and they have that understanding of what it is that we actually do on the daily, and that they would be willing to propose a bill. And I like the fact that you guys were able to pivot when he recognized that it wasn't going to go all the way through as a bill, to take that next step of a resolution, and that's a great first step. A lot of us, quite a few of the members that when they talk about like, well, what's reclassification get us? Can I retire in 10 years? It's like, whoa, slow the roll. They don't even see us as first responders right now. So how do you expect us to be able to retire at 20 years or 25 years, like the first responders do now, when they think of us as secretaries? The first thing we got to do is get them to acknowledge the fact that we are in fact first responders. So, if there's any resistance or negativity out there from members from your state, as you're trying to go through your path, speaking to the audience, remind them, like, first we got to get them to acknowledge the fact that we even are first responders, and then we can go for those other big chunks, which is what I'm excited about here in New Jersey. We just got reclassified. We're recognized as first responders. That bill.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. That bill just went on the 18th of this month. So now we have a Facebook page dedicated to just New Jersey dispatchers, and we're starting to formulate a work group to take that next step and tackle a lot of the issues that need to be tackled. But I mean, congratulations on the resolution, and I hope that you follow through and stay on top of your connection to get the to get that encouragement to your congresswomen, congressmen, and your your senators from your state, to get their names on the co-sponsor list, because every co-sponsor that we get just puts more pressure on the committee chairman to have a debate on the bill. Because right now, the current 901 Saves Act in the House, which is now bill number HR 2351, which everybody should know that, because I post it like every post on our page for the dispatchers as part of first responders.
I got a copy of it here.
Yeah, so everyone should be familiar with that. We have 102 co-sponsors. It went straight back to this same committee that the 116th Congress, the bill 1629, that was introduced in 2019, like Kimberly mentioned earlier. And of course, right after that was introduced, the pandemic, boom, like Congress put everything else aside and was just trying to figure out what do we do about this, and a lot of other things that have happened since. So the more and more co-sponsors we get, the more pressure we can put on Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia, to actually debate the bill and get us a chance to get it out onto the floor. Rebecca, do you have any thoughts and you'd like to share as well?
So one of the things I picked up from you, Kimberly, is you said there's already language on a bill that technically reclassifies you or calls you guys first responders.
Kind of, in a way. I mean, so when they were trying to figure out language for the bill, and which ended up being the resolution, they sent me some pieces out of statutes and everything that when you read it, it's like they were interpreting it as like we are already like first responders. It doesn't say 911 specifically,
Right.
but it's just like those who respond to and stuff. So that's kind of where they were coming from. They were coming from where, well, pretty much, you guys are already recognized, and even in post, with our post council and in Montana, you could almost interpret it that way as well.
I think that's where one of the biggest debates is right now. Is you're right. Is a lot of state statutes that I've even looked at and I've talked to people about. It says first responders is defined as someone who responds to
Right.
an emergency event.
Yes.
And I know here in Wisconsin, that's what people are saying. Well, you guys don't respond. I'm like, but what's your definition of respond?
Yeah. Define
Yes,
respond.
Right. I said, yes, I'm not physically getting in a vehicle and going to the scene, but I am responding to the call that I just answered.
Yep.
by putting
Responding to the
information
incident.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, by creating that pad call,
Yep.
hitting a button to either set the tones off at the firehouse or, call someone on the radio and say, hey, I need you to go here for.
Well, you're making decisions. You're making
Right.
decisions.
You're
on-
the incident commander.
Absolutely,
You're the
that's
incident
right.
commander until you hand it off, right?
Right.
Yes, yeah.
But
So I
I
think-
think, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but Rebecca, I think that you're putting up a real good idea as far as advice to our members and the viewers of this, which is do some homework for your assemblymen. Go and research what your state does have on the books already.
Right.
Because I'll tell you the truth, I had nothing to do with the bill being started. It actually started with both of those senators. I guess, I don't know if they caught wind of what was going on at the national level or what was happening, but the bill was already on the books, and it actually had already failed once. And so they were doing a second attempt. And I found out about the 911 saves. So I was on social media pushing that. And then I found out that that the New Jersey bill was in the state house. So I was like, ooh, so then I keyed up on that and started tweeting the crap out of that, to the point where it caught the eye of the assemblyman. And he's like, yo, you want to get involved? It's coming up on to be debated in the committee. I need someone to testify. So that's how I ended up testifying on the first committee hearing back in March of 2020. It literally was like right when everyone we had to do it by Zoom because the state house closed and everything. So I testified via Zoom. And what I found out was once he approached me, I went and found the bill itself, and I'm reading it. And he basically took what the initial bill in the state of New Jersey that created 911, and everywhere that it mentioned dispatcher, he crossed it out and wrote 911 dispatchers are first responder dispatchers. So that's all he did. But the bill passed. And so now we have that title change, which basically, is just saying, yeah, they're the first ones to respond. When they answer that phone, the response to that call has started. And so
Is a response.
Yeah. If they don't answer it, nobody goes anywhere.
Exactly. I mean,
We testified via not Zoom, but maybe it was Zoom, but we weren't on camera or anything. But I was in Seattle when I testified, so it was pretty easy, obviously, but it was it made you really appreciate technology.
Right.
yeah.
Actually, when you turn the camera off.
When you can, sure. But you know, I guess I would add a couple more things. Make sure that you have your state chapter of Apco involved and Nina as well, because they're probably already leading these efforts and we don't have to do it by ourselves. You can get involved. You mentioned that you were on your pro chart committee, and Kimberly and I were charter members of, proud of that, because actually now we're one of the reasons that there's a pro chart in every hopefully soon every chapter
In every state.
yeah, because it really does start on the local level. All this starts on the local level, and we're the ones that are going to have to push the people that represent our state to support this.
So and that is so true. And I can't say enough about making noise, getting out there, you know, at the
Squeaky
meetings
wheel.
and stuff, you know, yeah, absolutely. You know, so Susan and I have attended like our MACO meetings too, the Montana Association of Counties. So they'll have like their spring meetings, which are coming up. And so they're kind of used to seeing us, you know, to some extent, you know, because we've gone to some of their committee meetings. So, you know, so if you don't get out there, and usually it is maybe one or two people that do that, but they start recognizing you. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, Montana Apco. You know, I mean, for us, it's, you know, been Montana Apco because Nina is very new in Montana. So it's, so, you know, they know Apco. We're testifying on behalf of, you know, Montana Apco and everything. So
They look at us as professionals.
So I
and
can't,
experts.
right. And so I can't say enough about getting out there and getting your name out there where people know you and everything, and they know who to turn to, especially. I have all kinds of people that dispatchers that will contact me and ask me questions about things across the state because they've heard my name and stuff. And so like, it's a name that comes, you know, to mind. And so they'll reach out to me and ask me a question. I'm obviously not the only person, but I'm one of many names that they can at least depend on, you know, if they have a question about something. So yeah, so I think it was you, Rebecca, that was saying something about, you know, maybe not everybody, how did you put it? Maybe one or two people, I guess, talking about things, or the same two people that always do things. I don't know if that's what you said. It was something similar to that. But yeah, I mean, you have to be that person. You have to be that person that is going to be available.
And that was one thing. That was one thing I just learned in course 3 of the RPL. And James, you'll probably remember this when course 3 was all about talent management and how to build your team and all this stuff. But the one thing that they talked about the most is know who your best resources are.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know who that resource is, you know, reach out to who you do know, because they may know who the best resource is on that topic.
Yep.
So, sorry.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely
chime in there.
You're absolutely right, Rebecca. Some people write better, they're better authors than they are speakers. Some people are better speakers. So if you start to identify those people, and a lot of times you do that by getting to know them and maybe even approaching them about being on a committee or something because of their strengths and how they would fit into your organization with Apco or Nina. And once you identify them, your resources are in place.
Right.
I just think there's a lot of us that, you know, we're so used to fighting for everyone else, we forget to fight for ourselves. And, you know, it's like, it's time that we start fighting for ourselves and our profession and making it better for not only ourselves, but, you know, the next generation, you know, again, so that they're spared that feeling like, you know, I'm doing all this work and nobody cares, you know, or nobody understands it. Like, you know, like, you know, I think we're sparing that, that conflict. They're telling me I'm a first responder, but they don't want to pay me like I'm a first responder. They tell me, you know, I'm not a first responder, but they expect me to drive through the blizzard and I have to be there while the rest of the secretaries that work for the city are at home having hot cocoa by the fireplace, you know, like, So we hope, I'm hoping that we get this recognition, we build the profession to the next level.
Right.
And
So I think you
know,
always, I just think you really always have to look at the future, even the next day. I mean, there might be a breakthrough that somebody has, you know, that you've never even thought of before. I was having these conversations today with one of my dispatchers, and then my husband as well. I think I was telling you that earlier, James. I was talking to them and I said, what is the difference? I said, for instance, I said, I know that, you know, we're not the best cheerleaders of ourselves, you know, like Susan said, you know, I mean, a lot of people like to hang in the shadows, right? And everything, but we can't let everybody else, you know, do all of the work. I mean, you really do have to step outside the box and start working towards that. So a lot of my conversations today, especially with my dispatcher, was, you know, what is the difference? I said, like with us, I said, in the nursing profession, I said, for instance, I said, they work shift work, they work weekends. I said, it's the difference. I said, they're a profession. They're known as a profession. I said, and dispatchers, I said, we're not recognized as a profession. She said, well, maybe it's more like a trade profession. I said, well, yeah, you could really look at it that way too, you know, because we don't have educational in many places. There are no education requirements at all, if any, other than maybe a high school diploma, right? And
Exactly.
stuff.
Yep.
well, and we're working on that, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited that you mentioned that, because with Washington State right now is working on developing a minimum standard for the state certification, excuse me. And in that bill, they're kind of putting it so that it's worded without being, you know, ambiguous, that they're first responders. So that's another way of doing it, where you're tucking it into another bill. You know, so they'll get first responder status, and they'll join the 31, 32 states that already have, you know, a minimum standard. You know, here in New Jersey, we have the 40-hour basic course, you know, and then of course, if you're PSAP, your employees need to have EMD certification to answer the 911.
Right.
So, you know, the more we get, you know, I guess what, like the 18 states that are left that don't have that basic certification, you know, as they're working on those bills, because then it's like, it's not about us or fighting for ourselves, it's that we're fighting for the community, because we're trying to provide a better service, you know, and so more people might support that, you know, in addition to the first responder status.
Are you,
as far as the recertification,
so are you talking about
minimum reclassification?
EMD? Is that what you were talking about?
EMD and just the basic telecommunicator course, like, you know, I guess it's
right.
You know, so yeah, and then as you're putting that into place, that law into place, you can make the wording in that to include like first responder status.
Right.
Is an avenue. That's, you know, I was speaking to one of the Washington State Apco representatives, and that's how when I asked about the first responder status, and they're like, well, it's in this bill that we're working on to get the minimum requirements.
When we were working on ProChart, I remember a couple of states saying that they had were going to go for 20-year retirement, the ability to retire, you know, 20 years and out, but they hadn't gotten to a point yet where they had where they required a certain amount of training, where that was in statute. And really, you have to have the building blocks to make it a profession before you can go on to the retirement piece. So I think all of this is, I think that these are the building blocks that end up in that piece too. We have to be recognized as professionals to get the benefits of professionals. And we've talked too about that if we are reclassified, it will make a difference in our ability to schedule differently, different hours, and maybe our ability to get funding and recognition for PTSD and that sort of, and mental health assistance. So
you know.
Yeah. we,
Sorry.
we have a guest who agrees with you.
Well, that's
I
good.
I think that's a really, so Susan did touch on the, the training and you did too, James. So, in Montana, we've had training requirements since 1989. And so all dispatchers have to attend our academy within a year of being hired. So it's an 80-hour academy and everything. But that was actually one of the selling points. That was actually one of the points that we had when we were pitching 20-year retirement, was the fact that, we had, sheriff's 20-year retirement and stuff. So it's like, why, we go to the same, we go to the academy too. We have those requirements. We have training requirements. So why wouldn't we then be able to be absorbed into the 20-year retirement as well? So, we've come up with quite a few arguments.
Yeah, and that's
learn-
it. And
you know,
gotta
when we
hit
were-
every angle.
Yeah, when we went to the legislature those couple of times, we were not successful, unfortunately, but we'll get there. Kimberly and I always say that we're going to be there in our walkers if that's what it takes.
Or canes, yeah. Or
It'll
we'll
take
get our
that many years.
canes and
we will do it. We will. We are,
Yep.
yeah,
Or
we're
start grooming the
focused.
next generation and say, look, this is as far
Yes.
as I could take it. Now you need to pick up the ball where I was able to leave it here.
We'll
which
still
is
be
a
in the
lot further
audience.
ahead
Right.
of where we were, and I'm speaking as far
Yeah.
as like the certifications that again, I'm speaking to our audience members because we have
Oh.
members throughout every state. And again, there are, approximately 15 to 20 states that still don't have the minimum certification. So if you start battling that, you can also start to
Right.
build off of that, and I just think there's, how many times do trainees get frustrated because, there's like 8 different avenues to get a task done in dispatch. And some trainers might like to do 3, 4, and 5 first, or, or some start at 10, 11, and 12 or whatever. But as long as the end result is positive and inside the SOP, then there's not really a wrong, nothing was really wrong there. So,
Mhm.
As we speak to our members and we're trying to, really get them encouraged and drunk and passionate about the reclassification and trying to do something in their home state, there's not a wrong way. You just got to do something. That would be my message for tonight is, thank you for sharing your success at, getting the resolution passed and the work on hopefully encouraging your congressional delegation to do their job as getting their names on the co-sponsor list for the national bill. That would, that's still a work in progress, and I'm just encouraged by hearing that's what you're working towards.
For the 116th, for the 911 Saves Act, the first one, we did get John Tester to sign on. And so I'm assuming that he'll do it again. We just need to remind him.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. So, yeah. And who knows how many emails I know I've sent many emails and he's from our county. He's from the county that I work in.
Well, then you stop by his office.
I actually went through and compared the sponsor list on the 911 Saves Act from the original, what was it, the 116th Congress, when it was originally introduced, to the current Congress. And, so made a list of all of the representatives on both the House and the Senate side, went through and signed, checked off who all sponsored it in the first one, and then who had all checked it off this one. And if we could get everyone, now this was probably a month or so ago since I've last updated it, but if we could have gotten everyone that had either signed off on the previous one, if they were still in office, or got whoever replaced the person that had signed off on it in the first Congress, if we got all of those people to now sign off on it and support it, we would be at, what did I say, like 150 to 175 supporters.
Yes. Which we're currently at 102.
The 911 Saves bill. So like we would be almost to that halfway mark that we need to get to like force the debate.
Well, I wonder if we could send blasts out to our Apco and Nina members about who to get a hold of. We only have 3 congressional members. It's not that tough.
Yeah.
Well, the national level of the Pro Chart, they do still have that link that's still available that it'll send your letter directly to your local congressman. So I would do that. But what got my congressman to finally co-sponsor was picking up the phone and calling his office. And not every day, but like once a month, just call, hey, I'm really interested in this bill. Can Congressman Van Drew put his name on it? And after like the 3rd or 4th call, I went and checked back, and sure enough, his name had been added to the bill. So emails can be discarded, ignored. Pick up the phone, and that makes it a lot harder to be ignored.
Right.
Again, not harassment
Very
style,
true.
but
Right.
you make that first call, maybe you'll get lucky and be like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that. I meant to do that. And most likely you'll speak to a staff member, and but just keep making that phone call, once a month even. So now I really enjoyed our conversation. We're about to zoom out.
That's a good idea.
And so thank you, ladies, for joining us and sharing your story with our members. And we'll
Hey,
probably
thank
be airing
you.
this out
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Saturday.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. It's great.
Hey,
meeting you.
good meeting you, Rebecca.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys too.
All right. So good
Have a
job,
good evening.
Montana. And maybe your state will be next. Have a good evening, everyone.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.